With MailChimp, you can design more engaging marketing assets in no time at all, thanks to our AI-powered
Well, here I am in my tubby again, and my tubby's all filled with water and nice fluffy suds. And I've got my soap and washcloth to wash myself, and I've got my nifty scrub brush to help me scrub my back, and I've got a big fluffy towel to dry myself when I'm done. But there's one other thing that makes tubby time the very best time of the whole day. And do you know what that is? It's a very special friend of mine, my very favorite little pal. Oh, rubber ducky, you're the one. You make bath time lots of fun. Rubber ducky, I'm awfully fond of you. Bo-bo-bo-dee-o, rubber ducky, joy of joys. When I squeeze you, you make noise. Rubber ducky, you're my very best friend, it's true. Oh, every day when I make my way to the tubby, I find a little fella who's cute and yellow and chubby. Rub-a-dub-dubby, rubber ducky, you're so fine, and I'm lucky that you're mine. Rubber ducky, I'm awfully fond of you. Hey, rubber ducky, would you like me to scrub your back with my nifty little scrub brush? You would? Okay, how's this? Hey, you want me to scrub behind your ears? Oh, I see. You don't have any ears, do you? Well, how about your tummy? Scrub his little ducky tummy. Ooh, he's ticklish. Ooh. Oh, every day when I make my way to the tubby, I find a little fella who's cute and yellow and chubby. Rub-a-dub-dubby, rubber ducky, you're so fine, and I'm lucky that you're mine. Rubber ducky, I'd like a whole pond of. Rubber ducky, I'm awfully fond of you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Leah Austin, the President and CEO of the National Black Child Development Institute. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to today's conversation. For over 50 years, the National Black Child Development Institute has worked with great partners like Sesame Street to provide resources and to advocate for Black children and families. We are excited about today's conversation and equally excited about the resources and tools that Sesame Street and communities will be presenting to you today. Over to you, Antonio.
Thanks so much, Dr. Austin, and thanks to everyone joining us on today's conversation. My name is Antonio Freitas, and on behalf of the Sesame Workshop, I'm excited to talk to you all today about some of the resources that may be helpful in your work and conversations with children and adults in your circle of care. We know that children begin to observe and internalize messages of race at a young age, during a critical time for building one's own identity and sense of self. It's important then for families to feel equipped and comfortable to have these conversations about race and racism, and Sesame is here to help. Together, we're launching the new ABCs of racial literacy with resources designed to give children and caregivers and even providers additional tools to cope with racism and to navigate difficult situations together as a family and community. We want kids to know that racism is wrong and that all skin colors, eye shapes, and hair textures are beautiful and to be celebrated. So I come to this place as a former classroom teacher and am humbled and aware at the expertise in everyone in this virtual setting and the tireless ways that you are often all things to all people, big and small, in your settings. We share information, we ask questions, and we help others in a child's life explain how the world works and can work differently. Like many of you, I oversaw programming for children and families and know that even the most prepared lessons by seasoned vets can sometimes fall by the wayside when life happens. Grandparents pass away, families get addicted, and parents get deployed. And we know that when these small cracks don't get addressed in healthy ways, that singular traumatic experience that a child may have can lead to severe consequences through adulthood. But like you, Sesame Street believes in the power of community. And for over 50 years, we've worked with children, families, and providers to build smarter, stronger, kinder communities, one relationship at a time. In today's conversation, we'll get to know each other and then learn a little bit more about Sesame Street and Communities, our digital hub of multimedia resources. From there, we'll have a quick conversation about the needs of our own communities and the potential to capitalize on its strengths and needs with meaningful resources. We'll play with a couple different tools that we have on our website and then spend some time thinking about the best ways to embed these into our work before closing out. Now, as we go through these resources, I'm going to ask you to reflect on those children, those families, those staff members that are in your care, and with me to play in the sandbox with these resources that may be just one more tool in the conversations and the work that you're already doing. My goal is for you to leave today's conversation with some relevant resources that you can easily embed into the fold of programming with stakeholders. And along the way, because we're Sesame, we want to make learning fun, we'll make sure to engage in some trivia that you can use to dazzle friends in person or via virtual happy hours. So we'll get started with a quick question of trivia right now. You see on your screen the question, which Sesame Street character is the only fictional one to have ever testified in front of Congress? Using both your noggin and the chat window, go ahead and take a quick minute and enter your best guess there. Well, people came ready to play. I see a lot of answers connected to Big Bird and Elmo. We have Kermit in the mix. Let's take about 10 more seconds and see. This is a good, ready, engaged, and guessing group. The correct answer is Elmo, everyone's best friend with red fur. In 2002, Elmo actually did his civic duty as a monster resident of Sesame Street. He donned a Muppet-sized suit and testified in front of the House Education Appropriations Subcommittee. And accompanying Joe Lamont from the National Association of Music Merchants, his plea was simple: just fund music instruments and education for school kids. According to the official congressional records, Elmo gave a heartened testimony on the power of music in the lives of children, his personal love of singing, dancing, and of learning the ABCs through song. And it didn't matter that at one point he tried to eat the microphone. And I should say that Rocco was not in the mix when he did this conversation many moons ago. So you have a sense now of the rhythm of these conversations, of the use and integration of trivia, and hopefully some more things that you can use in conversations with members of your community. So we'll begin today by learning a little bit more about everyone on today's call. As mentioned at the top of my hour, my name is Antonio Freitas, and as the Director of Educational Experiences here at Sesame, I get the privilege of living my best professional life. And I joke that that means that during the day, I get to build a lot of the resources, the concepts behind those resources, and the vehicles to share them with others, namely articles, printables, and a wealth of other assets we're going to be talking through today. And then at nighttime, I work as a professor at a local community college here in New York City, working to train up pre-K teachers and people entering the world of early childhood. I came to that space very much committed to ensuring that children in their classrooms saw members of their own communities reflected in the identities of the people that taught them. And really am committed to making sure that that happens also through the fabric of work we do here at Sesame Street. So excited to connect with you all and to both learn a little bit more about all of you and hopefully continue these conversations after we have this presentation. So you know a little bit about me now, and I know that there's going to be a poll coming up in a few minutes, but I want you, as we're waiting, to take a quick minute and use the chat window to let us know a little bit about you. Now, I know many people have shared in the chat window who you are and where you're from, so if you've already done that, use the chat window to let us know who your favorite Muppet is. And I'll play some music so we can keep this conversation going.
The people in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, say who are the people in your neighborhood, the people that you meet each day. Oh, hi there, little fella.
Oh.
Hey, listen, you know who you could be if I gave you this little hat and a bag to carry over your shoulder?
I could be a laundryman.
No, not a laundry
How about
man.
Santa Claus?
No, not Santa Claus.
What's wrong with Santa Claus?
There's nothing wrugh with Santa Claus.
Don't you like Christmas?
Oh, I love Christmas, but you could be the postman.
A postman? Oh, the postman always brings the mail. Through rain or snow or sleet or hail. I'll work and work the whole day through to get your letter safe to you.
'Cause a postman is a person in your neighborhood.
In your neighborhood.
He's in your neighborhood.
A
Postman is a person in your neighborhood. A person that you meet each day.
I'll see you around.
Okay.
Where are you going, to a fire?
Hey, speaking of a fire.
Fire, Santa Claus.
No.
We're going to go ahead and pause it there. We got a lot of great things to get through today. I just wanted to tease a little bit of that information. I know there's a poll that's going to come out sharing a little bit more of not only who you are and where you're from, but some of the specific roles that you play for children and families in your care. And I know that typically when we've had these conversations in the past, specifically in person in a pre-COVID world, this was the time in presentations when there was a jump in the sound in the room, and there was a lot of laughter and joy and nostalgia that really sort of crept into those different conversations that people were having. And while it feels slightly different in this virtual setting, we know that just based on the 135 people connected to the chat and all the great jumps in information that you're sharing, we know that Sesame Street has the tendency to foster these types of good feelings in people, no matter where we're connecting with each other. So imagine then what it would be like if a whole community was alive with that energy. Imagine how these furry, friendly characters could bring together a whole community. And that's really what we hope you'll feel and get excited about as you learn more about Sesame's communities. Before we do that, though, I'm going to pass the mic back to Allison at NBCDI to talk to us a little bit about the history of our work.
And I know there are slides for this too. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Allison Jones, Vice President of National Partnerships and Community Mobilization for the National Black Child Development Institute. For many years, I've been connected to both NBCDI and Sesame Street. Both organizations have helped me appreciate and understand that I can be kind, that I'm special, that I have neighbors who care about me, and that I am enough. These messages have helped shape who I am today. Right now, I am delighted to share with you a little bit about NBCDI's history and who we are as an organization. I also want to express how grateful I am for our partnership with Sesame and all the friends that we have joining us today. Next slide. NBCDI's mission is to improve and advance the quality of life for Black children and families through education and advocacy. Our story started over 50 years ago in the wake of a very challenging time for the Black community. Just a few years before NBCDI was founded, a small church in Birmingham, Alabama, 16th Street Baptist Church, was bombed, and 4 little girls lost their lives. Not long after that, Dr. Martin Luther King, a hero for many young Black children at the time, was brutally murdered. This was the climate just prior to the founding of NBCDI. The organization launched national efforts to support Black parents, caregivers, and educators through these challenging times. Today, the organization still supports. After children witnessed the murder of George Floyd and others, parents and educators, they needed resources. They needed things to help children understand and help children cope. Over the past 50 years, NBCDI has worked to promote hope and ignite movements to develop strategies and improve the lives of Black children through educational activities and advocacy. Next slide. NBCDI's work is vital because Black children were the most vulnerable group of children 50 years ago when the organization started. And unfortunately, Black children are currently some of the most vulnerable citizens today. Partnerships like the one NBCDI has with Sesame are important to help amplify our mission and promote vital and research-based resources for families, caregivers, educators, and others. We aid them as we raise the next generations of advocates and great leaders. Next slide. This one shows our national affiliate network. Through our network, NBCDI has the ability to reach children in cities across the nation. And I'm really excited about today. So I'll talk a little bit more to you a little bit later, but right now I'll turn things right back over to Antonio so he can share about Sesame's rich history and a little information about their resources that they have to offer.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Allison. Looking forward to connecting you in a few more slides. Before I jump into the history, I do want to take a quick moment and make sure that everyone here has a chance to let us know a little bit more about themselves. You've heard about Allison and the backstory of NBCDI. You've heard a little bit more about me. And before I share with you the backstory of Sesame Street, let us know a little bit about you and specifically what aspect of your identity prompted you to engage in today's conversation. That of a caregiver or parent, of a provider or staff member, of someone in leadership or administration, or someone other. Take a moment, see if you can answer that slide, and in about 50 seconds, we'll see if we can show you the results. Amber has a great question about other. It includes teacher, educator, or administration. Yep, whatever one works. It sounds like we have an overwhelming amount of people in today's conversation connected to leadership or administration, and then peppered throughout people within caregiver and provider spaces, as well as that larger window of others. So we'll make sure to touch across resources that you can use no matter the identity that you're bringing to this conversation, and really sort of want to give space for people to make this as meaningful and relevant to your work as possible by giving a flurry of options to use as we continue to move forward. So with that, let's jump into the backstory of Sesame Street. Back in 1969, the United States was on the verge of a change. With limited resources available in communities across the United States, Sesame Street was the first show of its kind to not only entertain, but educate. Creators Joan Gans Cooney and Lloyd Morissette saw an opportunity to prepare every child, no matter where they lived, with the information that they needed to all start school with the same level of readiness. And now, more than 50 years later, Sesame continues to prepare children for school and the world with fun and engaging ways to explore it with their furry friends. And from the very beginning, Sesame Workshop has modeled inclusivity in Sesame Street's storylines and diverse cast of Muppets, human cast members, and guest stars. From Roosevelt Franklin, our first Black Muppet, through the years to include other friends like Rosita, Cammy, and Lily, a furry friend reflecting food insecurity and homelessness that so many families face, we've been able to introduce Muppets that reflect everyone in our neighborhoods and the resilience that they bring to every challenge that they overcome. But over the past few years, we've been hearing from partners and advisors and thought that we should consider doing more. We conducted an identity study in 2019, and we plan to convene advisors to discuss systemic racism and historical trauma. Unfortunately, that got put on the back burner when COVID began. But after the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many more, we realized that we needed to do more with a renewed sense of urgency. Everyone collectively felt like we were not doing enough, that we needed to be explicit. And Sesame realized that while diversity and inclusion and representation were critical, it's not sufficient. To tackle racism, we had to think about being bold and explicit by naming it. And so with the CNN town hall, we first explicitly defined what racism is. And now we're continuing to define and repeat it so that it's something that kids can understand, recognize when it happens, and take actions to deconstruct with adults in their circle of care. We know that racism, along with many other traumatic experiences, affect nearly half of American children under the age of 18. That means that over 35 million children have been through at least one ACE, or adverse childhood experience, with more than 1/3 of those children under the age of 5. But at Sesame Street, we also know that simple strategies can make a difference in mitigating the effects of some of these traumatic experiences. We're learning that the more that we help families, both children and their adults, take small steps, the more that we can increase the chances of successful outcomes in school and life. It's about helping us all build resilience as we help the communities that we work in heal and build something newer, better, and different. And so to get a better sense of what Sesame Street and community looks like in action, let's together watch a quick introductory video.
All children deserve to grow and play and learn, free from stress or fear. But most at some point will need help coping with difficult situations.
Ta-da! Oh, look at that.
Something Sesame Street has recognized for 50 years.
Big Bird, when people die, they don't come back.
Ever?
No, never.
Prolonged stress experienced by young children has a profound effect on healthy development. Too many children are exposed to traumatic experiences, creating barriers to their success. We want to help them overcome these challenges. With Sesame Street and communities, we're bringing Sesame Street across the country, empowering parents, caregivers, and local partners with trainings, support, and research-based resources to help all children get off to the best start.
For us, this work is really about connections and community.
We knew that if we had our community connections coupled with the trust that the brand that Sesame Street has and the experience they have, that we could really make a positive impact.
With on-the-ground partners, we're helping children prepare for school, build healthy habits, and cope with a wide range of traumatic experiences.
My mom was having a hard time with addiction, and I felt like my family was the only one going through it.
When do you get to see your mom?
Not that much.
How come?
Because she's in prison. There's a lot of tough issues that we address when it comes to parenting.
Sad feelings can come and go, and it's okay to talk about it.
Having those tools to get through it, what greater way to do it through characters, Muppets.
As long as we're together, we got this.
We are ready to get set with our families, our young children.
It's an opportunity to help our parents be better parents, to interact more strongly with their children, to teach them the skills that they need to be better students when they get into school. Is just absolutely a life changer, a game changer.
Together, we're bringing Sesame Street to every street, giving all children the chance to thrive.
And so as you can see from that video, Sesame Street and communities builds on the more than 50-year commitment to serving and learning from families and providers, working to build smarter, stronger, kinder kids, one relationship at a time. And the strategy that we use to reach this goal is to engage providers and communities in helping to create resilient families. So with a clear sense now of the landscape and the need of these resources to support everyone across all of our communities and care, let's explore what Sesame Street communities can be for you. Now, when I talk about Sesame Street communities, I might shorten it to SSIC because we know it's sort of a long title, but SSIC is that model that uses 3 components to reach children in communities through channels that we traditionally have not been able to access. And that includes an online content hub, this curated collection of the best of our community engagement work created over decades with new content updated monthly. It also includes professional development resources. And these are my personal favorite because I get to build these and then think about how we can integrate them into the fold of programming like organizations like NBCDI are already doing. And this helps really train providers to help meet children and their families through webinars, training videos, and courses. And finally, implementation partners like all of you that engage your stakeholders to continue the amazing work you're already doing with just one more tool in your toolbox. Sesame Street and Communities offers parents, providers, and community organizations shared messaging, shareable content, and simple strategies for kids and families' daily lives for free. Connected to the workshop, it is our commitment that anyone can access Sesame Street and Communities or ssic.org at any time from any place for no money at all. So you can go to the resource, get whatever you need from the platform, and be able to access it whenever you want in the future. So as we go through the website today, keep in mind the programs that you do or those that you want to do, and all the ways that you can incorporate these resources into those talks you're already having. So we're going to start by taking a minute to look at the landing page. And when you type in ssic.org, it will prompt you to either ask if you are a provider or staff member or parent or caregiver. Now we have information that is consistent, connected to all of our topics against both of those different paths, but things are slightly different and I'll be able to talk to you about them in a quick minute. But take a minute and on your screen, you see a screenshot that I took of one of the banners, those first pictures when you click into ssic.org. Use the chat window and let us know some of the things that you notice or that catch your eye. Thanks, Kimberly, for starting the conversation. We try to really make sure that those diverse images reflect everyone in the United States and the wide array of different experiences and strengths that everyone brings to these conversations. Lucy, you talked a little bit about the different types of topics that we've addressed. We have more than 30 that are alphabetized and that, again, are updated each and every month. So we'll talk about a few today and then deep dive into our newest resources for racial justice. As you continue to type those out, I just want to flag for you some of the different things that we want to make sure everybody sees. And that is that when you take a look at these pages, information connected to it can be seen in lots of different ways, but that it is adult facing, right? We understand that we've created this site especially for grownups like you because we know how important grownups are in children's life and development. More than anything, we want to equip parents, caregivers, and providers like you all with knowledge, tools, and resources that support your work with children and families. You'll see that you can change the view to either parent or provider, and I've talked a little bit about that. The parent view includes shorter experiences and resources that can be used with children at home, while the provider view includes all of that great parent content, plus some of the different resources that you can use in the context of professional development with peers, with learning cohorts, with workshops and activities that you can also use with children in your own small settings or classroom larger settings. And then with more than 300 different activities across the more than 30 different topics, all of our resources are reflected, as many of you reflected, like Margaret, in both English and Spanish. Just by clicking onto either word in that top left-hand corner today, you'll be able to convert all of the information that you see on the page into one language from the other. Now, some of our different topics have languages that include Arabic, Korean, and Chinese, and we're hoping to really build that out in a slightly more robust way, but baby steps as we continue to do that. And finally, because so many members of our NBCDI partnership and community work in a variety of unique settings, all of our different resources can be saved, shared, or even printed out with the option to log in if you have the time and the want to build a library, or the option to just keep it easy without logging in so that you can go to the page that you want on your own time whenever you want. So at many of our workshops, both in person and virtual, participants are often excited, but truthfully, sometimes overwhelmed at the amount of resources we have on Sesame Street and communities, and because of that, the best place to start. So I want to answer that question in two ways. The first is, if you know your children, if you know your needs, and if you know what you're looking for, you know the best place to start. There is no right place. It's wherever you begin is the best place. The second thing is, as you think about those types of resources and the way that your stakeholders like to consume information, we've been able to create a filter option. And this filter option allows users short on time or with a specific audience the opportunity to selectively determine the most strategic use of resources based on the age of the person you're working with, the length of time you have with them, and even the type of asset that you have to work with. Printable resources are those assets that are easy to print out and have small green icons of paper at the bottom of each resource. Everything from coloring pages, card games, resource directories, and even stories to share are just a few of these types of resources. Interactive games are those activities where kids can use devices like phones, computers, and even tablets to explore settings and circumstances as their furry friends. And they do this to really practice and role play the best ways to handle different settings like preschool, a doctor's office, or even engaging in calming games to manage emotions. And a small blue icon of a hand will let you know about these types of resources. Videos on our topic pages can show the different ways that we stay healthy, informed, and in control when life feels a little overwhelming. It can be easily found by looking for that small orange icon with a play button. Storybooks are interactive texts that children and adults can share in a few different ways. Kids can turn the pages of a digital storybook while an adult reads it to them, or just simply press play and have the story read aloud from the screen. Articles, highlighted by that small purple icon of a newspaper, are informative texts, usually at a grade school reading level and with easy to access bulleted information. We found these to be most useful between providers and caregivers. And articles, like all of our resources, have a single sentence summary on the top of them called the big idea that let people know what the resource is all about. Finally, workshops are a bundled packages of resources that the team here at Sesame has put together. And these workshops may be a combination of 2 or 3 of the different resources from this list that we found work really well together. You might see a video with a storybook or an interactive game with a workshop and a printable, but you might be able to think about these and build your own workshops or just take what works and leave what doesn't. Think for a moment about a child, a family, or a staff that you support. And if you were talking to them, for instance, about racial justice, what would be the filters you would use? Take a minute and use the chat window to let us know what age, time, or type of resource you might begin with an individual child, adult, or a staff member in your care. And as you know, I'm just going to answer the question that Anissa asked, connecting to some of the work about how we get our information from academic development and socialization. Before we create any of our resources, we get a sense from people that are doing the work on the ground across communities all over the United States in a variety of settings to get a better sense of both what resources are out there, what needs are not being addressed, and the specific ways that Sesame will be able to use our own specific friendly, furry voice to say things that might be able to cut through the fabric in ways that other organizations can't, right? How can Elmo say something that everyone can hear? And how can we use our resources to continue the conversation? And so once we get a better sense of what that topic is, we bring together a wealth of subject matter experts from around the United States. And those include people in clinical fields like psychology, education, social work, and a wealth of other spaces, as well as parents, providers, and people doing the work in a variety of different settings, both public, private, in sectors across the United States. And we convene everyone together for an advisory council. And that advisory council really becomes the brain trust that gives us a sense through dialogue, conversations, and recommendations of what the needs are, what trends are being seen, and the unique voice that Sesame can give to these conversations. We then build resources that match those things and go back to those advisors to say, is this what you mean? Is this how we can create it? And begin to work back and forth in that. Great question. So we're going to use some of the different suggestions that you use for your filter, but before we do, let's get back into some trivia. So we were playing some songs at the beginning of today's conversation, but take a minute and think about ones that you remember from your own childhood and experiences with Sesame Street. Which classic Sesame Street song spent 9 weeks on Billboard's Hot 100, peaking at number 16? Take a minute and use the chat window to let us know what you think. Got Sunny Days, My Hair, Rubber Duckies. These are great suggestions. How to Get to Sesame Street. Thanks, Stephanie. People in Your Neighborhood by Latrell. Let's take about 10 more seconds before we move to the next slide. And many of you touched on this. We try to give a little bit of a tip off at the very beginning of the conversation, but the answer is actually Rubber Ducky. So many of you know that song. I know when I was a twin, as a very young child living in California with my family, this was a song that was on repeat on records in our house for much of my life. So it's good to see this still showing up and memorable for all of you as well. So before we dive into today's topic, we're going to take a quick moment and gain some clarity connected to the conversations you all are already having with children and families with a quick poll. Rim, can you throw that up for us? There might be a question right before that. It's okay. That might be a different one. That's okay, y'all. We'll keep going on and we can jump back into it a little bit later. We have some good poll questions to hold on to. So as you think about these resources and your level of interest in them, hold on to them. And this might be the part in the conversation where if you have a pencil or a notepad close to you, you can jot down some of the different resources that you might be able to use with that individual child or family or staff member that you're working with. So the ABCs of racial literacy is an educational curriculum that we've created here at the Sesame Workshop under the Coming Together initiative that we call it, to give families the knowledge, skills, and awareness needed to talk thoughtfully about racism. And this really includes giving everyone the necessary vocabulary and language to have these conversations at home. Our first launch was designed to help all families celebrate their unique identities while also providing age-appropriate language and strategies to answer questions around race and racism. And my peer Anna from Sesame Street has put the link in the resource chat window. But before you go to it, let's take a minute and take a look at it together on my screen. That way I can show you how to get to where you're going. So if you just type in ssic.org, it will take you straight to our page. And you'll notice on the screen that when you first jump into ssic.org or Sesame Street and Communities, you are asked if your identity is more reflective of that of a provider or of a parent or a caregiver. Now, again, just as a reminder, all of the resources in English and in Spanish are consistent across all of the topics in both pathways. The only difference is if you click on provider, you'll have an additional tab, and that includes free professional development resources. We didn't want to overwhelm families with things that providers might be using in professional settings. And so we really just sort of kept that to the providers page. So in this context, because of the people that we have on this call and the overwhelming amount that are in administrative positions and those of provider stakeholders, we're going to go through provider. You'll see when you get to the page, there's sort of a banner that shows you some of our newest resources that are continuing to come out. In the top left-hand corner, you have the chance to volley between English and Spanish. And again, everything on the page gets translated from one language to the other, as well as the identity option of switching between provider or caregiver. So if you maybe mistakenly went over to provider but want to go back to caregiver, you can just click in the upper left-hand corner to go back to that. Now here on the provider section, you'll see that we have a couple different tabs at the top that you can play with. The partner portal gives you a sense of the work that we are doing across the United States in different communities with local stakeholders. So we've been able to partner in over 8 different communities across the US with small groups of nonprofits working to meet the needs of children and families in spaces across the United States. And this gives you a sense of not only who is in those communities, but the work that we're doing in them. The professional development is that sweet spot that I enjoy the most. It gives you a breakdown of some of the unique resources that we have to share for free to anyone interested. It includes training videos, webinars, which are essentially pre-recorded workshops and webcasts, and then courses and interactive trainings that are asynchronous, self-paced, and many that include different ways that are aligned to Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework standards, and a wealth of other things that you can use in your professional settings. All of the different explanations and information that we share today is reflected on the provider and caregiver section when it comes to topics. And you can see we have more than 30 different topics alphabetized in A through Z order here under topics. And because today we're talking about racial justice, I'm going to go down to R. And you'll see for racial justice that this page, like all of our different pages, includes the title, what the work is mostly about connected to this page, options to save, to upload, or to print out the information. And then some of our pages include subtopics, but we have a whole library of resources down here that are free, that are easily accessible, and as mentioned in a few slides, are coded based on the different type of resource that you might be using with a child, a family member, or another staff member that you're working with. Things like videos, articles, printable resources, and a wealth of other things are here at the ready. Now, this feels overwhelming, or if you don't have the time to look through all these things, that's okay. You can take a look at the top and filter by age, time, and type of resource. Let's take a look though first at our introductory video that has to do with racial justice.
All right, this looks good.
Oh, okay. Dad, I think today's perfect.
A full day weather forecast of sunny skies and smiles.
Hi, Mr. Elijah.
Hey, Elmo.
What are you two doing? Dad and I are taking a break from our nature walk.
Yep, and we stopped for a moment to enjoy the colorful leaves.
Yeah. Oh, look, Elmo, the leaves are falling.
Yeah, look. This leaf is red like Elmo's fur, and this leaf is brown like Russ's skin.
Good observation, Elmo.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Elmo has a question.
Oh, what is it, Elmo?
Elmo wants to know why Russ's skin is brown.
Oh, I know why, Elmo. My mom and Dad told me. It's because of melanin. Right, Dad?
That's right.
Melanin? Oh, what's that?
Well, melanin is something that we each have inside our bodies that make the outside of our bodies the skin color that it is. It also gives us our eye and our hair color.
Oh, and our fur color?
Yes, that's right, exactly, Elmo.
Oh, but if we all have melanin, why are we different colors? Like, why is Mr. Elijah's skin a darker brown than Russ's skin?
Oh, that's a good question, Elmo. Well, it's because the more melanin you have, the darker your skin looks.
Oh.
The color of our skin is an important part of who we are, but we should all know that it's okay that we all look different in so very many ways.
Oh, well, Elmo's fur is red and soft.
Oh, and my hair is black and curly.
Things on the outside, like our skin color, our hair texture, our noses, our mouths and eyes, make us who we are. Many people call this race. But even though we look different, we're all part of the human race.
Isn't it cool, Elmo?
Very cool.
Look at the leaves. What do you two see?
Elmo sees leaves that are all different colors.
And the different colors look really cool together.
Yes, those leaves came from one amazing tree. Standing strong, its branches like arms stretch wide, with leaves of many different colors, side by side swaying together in the breeze.
Oh, like this? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
When people of all colors come together, we stand strong, like this tree.
Yeah. Oh, look, Elmo. This leaf looks just like us. Two colors side by side.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful together.
So it's always a great video to show, super powerful, and definitely a way to engage across a wide variety of different platforms, settings, and conversation starters that can be had with everyone in a neighborhood. So at here at the Sesame Workshop, we look at every issue through the lens of a child. And that includes really our large systemic issues like racism that have very real impacts on children's daily lives. Our work here focuses on breaking down these issues into many of the things that you flagged in the chat window, things that preschoolers understand to be wrong or unfair and that adults can see as developmentally appropriate, to really help break down concepts and help children understand how to be proud and how to become allies and advocates in their community. All of our ABCs of racial literacy resources are available in English and in Spanish for free. And as we think about those, what we tried to do connected to the advisory was think a little bit more about how to shape the work that we're doing through the three broad concepts of this first phase. And that includes having a shared language, right? What universal terminology can we all use, can we all agree on, and can we all begin to have conversations about so that we can talk about and celebrate race and deconstruct racism by understanding the differences between those two things. The second is the idea of communication and conflict resolution. How do we use our words, recognize their power, and with respect, engage in conversations that ensure that everyone can be seen fully in the light? And finally, with regards to being an upstander, what are the ways that children can understand concepts of wrong and unfairness in the context of equity and identity? And what role do the adults in their lives play in creating opportunities to really understand what those things are? And so Sesame really sort of took a look at those three different concepts as we created resources connected to racial justice. And what you saw in that video was two of our newest friends, and that includes Wes and his father, Eli, the weather guy. They moved to Sesame Street because Mom, Debbie, and Dad, Elijah, found great job opportunities here. And they also knew that it would be a wonderful and positive environment for their son, Wes, to grow up in. Wes, though, is an energetic kid with an extremely active imagination. And you saw in that video, he loves to play pretend and enjoys going to pre-K where he has plenty of other kids to join him with playing in imaginative worlds. His dad, Elijah, takes this to another level at home when he whips out a camera and lets Wes star in his very own movies. Wes is the only Black child in his class, which he's been mostly unaware of. However, there have been moments and microaggressions that, harmless as they may have seemed to other kids, have made Wes aware that he is perceived as different. And Wes lives in a household built on love and acceptance of individuality. And so really is trying to sort of come to grips with that through the help of his dad and family. His father, Elijah, has found it very difficult to move into a prime time air position as a Black meteorologist. He's been passed up for many promotions and watched as his white colleagues, many of whom were less qualified, received jobs and promotions over him. At his last job, in fact, Eli had been at for several years and knew that he was next in line to receive a primetime position on the air. Eli knew that he was just a shoo-in for the position, but the channel decided to hire a new white forecaster instead. And when asked why he was overlooked, he told the channel that the channel told him that they needed a more universal forecaster in that time slot. And because of that, Eli knew that he had to leave the station. Luckily, though, there was an opening here at his current station at Sesame Street. And I offer those backstories to our two characters not to be long-winded, but to give you a sense of when we create new characters on Sesame Street, we really are deliberately choosing and trying to ensure that we show both the faces of resilience and that we don't just throw someone on screen and make it happen, but we take a lot of time, we source a lot of great information and brilliance from our subject matter experts and create very real stories and identities connected to each of these different characters so we can continue to grow them through our different initiatives and the lives that they can help other people connect with. So we've been able to address some of these resources, and I've shown you on the screen a wealth of some of the different ways that you can access these, but I want to gently reframe this conversation today to think about how we can use these resources with three different contexts. The first is how you can share them with children. So at Sesame Street, again, as I mentioned before, we look at every issue through the lens of a child because we know that kids are not colorblind, that they first notice differences in race and start assigning value to those differences in infancy. Children also start forming their own sense of identity at a very young age. And so building a positive sense of identity is critical to the health and development of all children. And valuing the identities of other kids can help them grow into more embracing and caring adults. All kids need a form of self-identity that is positive based on how they look on the inside and who they are on the inside. And we recognize that using resources like the printable Beautiful Me is a great way for kids to grow and share who they are as they continue to grow and build in a racist society. You might consider printing these pages out and working together with children in your care to celebrate their own identities. We also know that singing is a great way to celebrate these identities and thinking about what we share with others and notice how we're different too. That second printable page, I Am Somebody, includes lyrics to a song that I'm going to share with you in a couple of slides and can offer children phrases, lyrics, and conversation starters to get them thinking about what it means for them to be strong in their skin. We know that positive affirmations can also build confidence and a strong sense of self-worth and identity. And so repeating these mantras is a powerful way to help keep big ideas in the heads of little ones and hearts when we need them the most. We might consider printing out those I Am Somebody cards and cut them apart and keeping them in an envelope so that kids can pick them up at random in the morning or at bedtime and keep them to read aloud, repeat, and try chanting even more. There's a wealth of different things that you can use to use these resources. Deandra has a question about our website in an app form. Sadly, we don't right now. We're just using this within the context of our online platform, but are working to see about that in our future. So light some candles as we continue to go down that path. So we recognize that it's all too common for kids and adults to feel that being different is also equated to bad or ugly. And we know those things aren't true. In fact, they're the complete opposite. So we also know that when there's lots of different ways to explain this, there's also different ways that adults can play a role in helping to demystify those different challenges with what we talk about as racial comeback strategies. And this was a tactic that was employed by many people in our advisory council and suggested as things that we could thread into conversations that adults were having with kids when they were confronted with an unjust racial situation. Let's take a look and learn a little bit more about the tactic breathe, feel, share.
It's okay, Wes.
Hey, Wes, Abby, what's going on?
Hi, Mr. Walker.
Hi.
Someone made fun of Wes's lunch today.
They did?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it? Oh. Sorry, bud. Oh, you know what? Do you want to try breathe, feel, share?
Okay. Breathe, feel, share.
What's that?
It's something that we can do when we have big feelings. Oh, hey, we'll show you. Okay. First, let's breathe. Some deep belly breaths. Here we go. Then feel. Notice how you feel and say it. Sometimes we feel it in our bodies when someone says something hurtful.
Yeah, I feel it in my stomach, Dad, and I feel sad.
And what would you say to that kid?
Well, I feel sad because curry chicken is my favorite, and you shouldn't laugh at it.
Yeah, I told them they were wrong.
Good job. How does saying that make you feel, Wes?
Well, just saying how I felt, it made me feel strong.
You are strong.
Yeah.
And the last thing is share. We tell a grown-up what happened so that they can help us. And guess what? You two already did that.
Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now let me make sure I got this right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, breathe. To calm down. Feel. Notice how I'm feeling and say it. And then share. Tell a grown-up what happened.
Breathe, feel, share.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got it, Abby.
You know what, Dad? I'm feeling better.
I'm glad, son.
Wes, I'm having some big feelings.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. I'm feeling extra happy that you're my friend.
I'm happy you're my friend too, Abby.
So in addition to that video and the strategy employed in it, we also have a storybook called Outside Inside that can help kids explore and celebrate their differences and similarities. I want to show you how to get to that one more time. I'm going to start at the top by clicking ssic.org. they'll take me straight to the page. And since I've clicked on it once before with all of you and selected the role of provider, it took me straight into that pathway. So again, the things that I'm seeing on this page that are only slightly different from the parent-facing page is that this includes the professional development tab. I'm going to go down to topics where racial justice is in that alphabetized way. I'm going to go past that video that we all saw together, past the subtopics we're going to dive into in a few minutes, past those different filter options, and scroll down here to see the whole library of resources that we're going to take a look through, including the one that we just saw together. But I want to show you how to use the filter. So if I take a look at this, and instead of age and time, I just put storybook, and you can use the filters, either all three, two, or just one, any combination that feels most comfortable to you. I'm going to click on the storybook, and that jumps out and filters outside, inside. And you'll see what's great about this is that, as mentioned in all of some of the different resources, we include a big idea, and that single sentence summary was really intended because if adults are in a hurry and as maybe at the end of a school day or at arrival, people don't have too much time to talk to each other, just keeping in mind your single sentence summary, or even just being able to read it and passing it to someone else in a child's circle of care can really begin to bridge the build to use these resources no matter where the child is learning or who they're learning with. In outside, inside, the big idea is that part of racial literacy is exploring and celebrating similarities and differences. And outside of the title, of the topic that it's under, the filter by the age of person you might be using with, and the length of time that it might take to read, there's also a gentle recommendation if you're not quite sure or don't necessarily know how you want to introduce this resource, of a gentle way to guide you through it. Let's take a look at the first few pages of outside, inside.
Outside, inside. Wes and his dad Elijah just moved to Sesame Street.
I can't wait to meet new friends.
You're so kind. I'm sure we both will.
Sesame Street is filled with neighbors from all around the world. It's a wonderful place to live.
Some of our neighbors look different from us, Dad.
Yes, the way we all look, sound, and where we're from are some of the things that make us special. But we're the same in lots of ways too.
Inside, we all have hearts and brains that let us love and learn.
Hey friends, put a hand on your heart. Close your eyes if you like and think about someone you love and who loves you.
We all have songs to sing.
When Wes was little, we used to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Wes. Hey friends, take turns naming a favorite song and sing it together. Move around to the music.
We all have stories to tell.
You know, Wes, one of our family's most important stories is how Grandma and Grandpa came here from Trinidad. When your mom was little, Grandma would remind her, stand up straight and tall, strong and proud. Remember, you are a giant.
Grandma always tells me I'm a giant too. Now you tell an important story about your family.
We all need to explore.
I love going on walks with Wes. He always looks up at the buildings because he's curious how they're put together. And I always look down at the ground and notice the tiny signs of the seasons. Between the two of us, we see it all.
We all feel joy.
Daddy, I love being silly with you. Hey, everybody, take turns making silly faces at each other.
We all live in communities.
Hey, Dad, what's a community?
A community is a group of people who live in the same place. Like we live on Sesame Street now. You're an important part of our community, Wes. Hey, friends, name one important place in your community and say why it's special.
We are all strong. We are all growing, outside and in.
Dad, am I always growing? Like every second of every day?
Yup. Friends, name one way in which you're growing on the outside and the inside.
We can all be helpers.
I appreciate you helping your mom and me. And there are lots of ways to help others, like your mom meditates with you to help you calm down.
And I'm a helper too. Outside at recess, if someone is sitting by themselves, I invite them to play.
Now, you tell each other some ways that you help others.
We all have people who care about us and who we care about.
I'm glad you're my family. I got you, Wes.
You got me, Dad. And I got you. We got we.
Give each other a high five, then make up a special family handshake.
So it is a great book to read, not only because of the concepts connected to it, but the gentle reflections of ways the children can think about who they are on the inside and who they are on the outside. But also from an adult's perspective, there are prompts that can be done in small class, whole class, or even individual one-on-one settings with children to give them a better sense of how to engage with that growing community around them of learners. So we're going to slide back into trivia, take a quick minute, use the chat window. I'm going to put pause on my own talking, get a drink of water, and let us know which Sesame Street character appeared on Dancing with the Stars, volunteering to tally votes. Great guess, Tanya. Cheryl Ann is saying the Count, great guess. Many people could see that we try to embed a little bit of a hint inside the question. Good guesses, y'all. We see Miss Piggy as a potential answer here. Let's take 10 more seconds, see what the best guess is. All right, many of you got it. The answer is Count Von Counts. He appeared briefly in The Counting Room on Jimmy Kimmel, which was supposed to give viewers way back when some insight on how the audience's votes were counted. But sadly, he was actually forced to reset the counting when Kimmel told him that Melby and Scary Spice were actually the same person. So you can see that while he was helpful, he was actually doing more harm than good. So they quickly took him out of that. So you have now a clear sense of the ways that we can use Sesame Street and community resources with kids in your care. So let's take a moment to see some more activities that children can do at home with family members. Building a positive sense of self-identity is critical to the development of all kids. And valuing the identity of others can also help children grow into more embracing, caring, and empathic adults. So fostering then these open conversations about race and identity is important for everyone of all backgrounds to do with children in their lives. And luckily, Sesame Workshop is here to support with resources that break down issues of racial literacy and racial justice in age-appropriate ways. So throughout that topic page that we have on racial justice, we've included several documentary-style short videos, each about 6 to 8 minutes long, with families from around the US, sharing the ways that they celebrate identity, family, and community. And we encourage caring grown-ups to watch this content with kids in their family as springboards for open conversations about race and racism. And across these videos, we've really started to reflect the wide array of cultures, ethnicities, and racial identities that make each of us unique, and the ways that individual families create space to dialogue about race. So we're going to take a look at one right now. We're going to meet the family of the Preston Foster Ogletrees to hear a little bit more about how they understand fairness, justice, and joy in their home. I'm going to show it to you on ssic.org. Just one more time of practice, never hurt anybody. I'll go to ssic.org, scroll over to topics, click under R for racial justice. I'll see all the different breakdown of resources we've been talking through today. But if I want to use my filter, I might go over to type. I'll click into video, and I'll say maybe 4 to 10 minutes. And you can see the wealth of different resources that we have here. Now, some obviously include adults that are real, some include adults and small people and animals that are Muppets, and some include a mix of both. We're going to take a look at the video talking about race with the Preston Foster Ogletrees. And as you've seen in some of the previous resources, you have that big idea at the top. You have opportunities to star it, to put it into your own library for profile, to upload it onto your desktop, or to print out the recommendations below that give you a sense of the best way that you might want to present this to children or families in your care. Let's take a look and watch Talking About Race.
If you had to summarize our family, it would be that we're big. We have big personalities, we have big lives.
Nothing can just be normal. It has to be extra.
We are not one thing, we are all the things.
My name is Henrik, and people call me Henny. My name is Dries, and some people call me Dreesy.
I'm Lauren. Some people around here call me Mom. And this is Jack, this is stepdad.
Hello.
We're a blended family, which is really special. We have some other members in the house.
The oldest, my son, Trey, and their baby sister, Lucienne.
What does it mean to be Black for our family?
Black is beautiful, Black power, and be proud of who you are.
What's special to you? It's you.
Me?
Yeah.
What does
I like
that
that
mean?
answer.
It's you. What does that mean?
I mean, it's on you, never gonna change.
It's on you, it's never gonna change.
Some people don't have the same skin as me, and that's okay, because everyone's different.
Exactly. I love that.
So it makes you different. Yeah.
Everyone's different, right?
Sharing the nuances and the differences about other cultures creates an empathy, creates an understanding. All of us come from such unique cultures, you know, and different recipes and, you know, different stories and different histories. I think it is a parent's responsibility to get to know what's going on in other cultures. I remember the boys were in kindergarten and they came home with some art. You know, they're showing me their family portrait and there's my face that is like beige, very, very, very beige. And, you know, they're like, there's me, I'm Black. And there's you, you're white. And I was like, I'm not white, baby. And I had to really explain to them, you know, what Blackness looks like and that we really do come in all shades and colors. The crayon box represents that. You know, you have everything from dark, dark, dark brown all the way to the fairest shades of skin, and that's all Black, and that's all beautiful. And that was kindergarten. Now, as 10-year-olds, they are very aware of their Blackness.
I take such good care of my hair because I think it makes it look good. So I love my hair texture. Yeah, I like it's like soft and push it back in more.
There is always that moment where we're sitting together at the table and we're pausing, you know, and we're reflecting on the day and we're listening to each other. There's no TV, there's no radio.
There's no phones.
And it's that, those are like my favorite moments.
It's very easy to get caught up, but you know, having that ritual really helps to center all of us. And you know, my role is to ensure that we do that.
Henrik, what do you love most about our family?
That we take care of ourselves and we will love each other no matter what. Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. You know, my mom raised me to be very outspoken. That helped to kind of inform how I am as a parent.
What is racism to you?
Racism is when someone treats someone worse based on their skin color.
There are moments on the news that kind of prompt conversations, and it's perfect.
Does that help you guys sometimes when we talk about things together as a family?
Yeah, I talked about it and I almost cried.
It's okay to express those feelings. It's okay to, you know, express those emotions, but you're not dealing with it alone.
You know, the boys see me cry, they see Jack cry, you know, and we have to show them, you know, you don't keep your feelings all bottled up.
It made me sad. And when I saw Jack shed a tear, that made me more sad because I kind of get sad when people cry, and also I felt his pain because, like, yeah, he just seeing another Black man killed.
And we have that discussion with the boys around, you know, what does it mean to be Black in America today? What does it mean for you as a young Black male?
What?
A lot of white households may not be having these same conversations around your interaction with police as a 10-year-old. So we preach to them around how they behave, how they engage. It's really around politeness, kindness, respect.
I feel like everybody should be kind and everybody should be nice to the people who are not nice to you, and just have a little bit of empathy for them to see where they're coming from.
Oh, wow.
I think that kindness is activism. That's always been my belief.
Exactly. You've got hands for greats like Josephine Baker.
If I had to give a parent tips it would be that we're celebrating our differences.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we hear like, oh, we're all the same.
We're not
You
the
have to
same.
be able to celebrate and understand your differences.
Oh, I get the hug too. I love hugs.
As parents, we're responsible for the environment that we create in this household.
Honestly, what I really appreciate about Lauren and her parenting style is her creativity.
Boom, boom, you agree? Boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, boom. For us, self-care looks like fun. We try to create so much fun, such a fun atmosphere in this house that they do feel like they're actually missing
out.
something. I think that everybody kind of needs to have a happy kit, things that you can quickly turn to that can just instantly change the energy. And for our household, it's music. So dance parties are a regular thing. Definitely had a couple mental health days in the more recent times.
At any point, they're given a few mental health days where they can just raise their hand and say,
I'm not feeling it.
I'm not feeling it today. And the only requirement, I think, is we ask them, so is there anything that you want to share around why you need it? To open up a space for them to talk.
And going outside, it's so important. They can get some fresh air. I mean, that changes everything. And then sometimes just waking up and going for a walk. Being Black and why I celebrate my Blackness so much is how dynamic that is. So you could be a professional skateboarder, you can be a chess player, you can be a gamer, you can be into anime. Black is everything. There's a more hopeful feeling for the children's future than I think ever before. So I think in raising Lucienne, the hope is that by the time she is aware that things hopefully are different.
Okay, so what do we think it's gonna take for the world to be different?
Kindness, love, and appreciation.
Kindness, love, and appreciation.
So I recognize that video is long, but I also recognize that it is beautifully shot. It includes a very real family in an authentic space, giving us in a very privileged way what it means to be part of celebrations, joy, and really sort of connections connected to each other. You all had a great breakdown in terms of the chat window, different ways you might be able to integrate this into courses, conversations, and work you're doing with children, with families, with classrooms, and with students, both as teachers in training and also small children. I do want to get to a quick question that I think Barry had with regards to the diversity of families that we reflect. Sesame is by no means a monolith, nor are the families that we try to reflect. We try to ensure that we can be as close as possible, as many different things to as many different people as we can. That by no means means that we are done or that we have been able to reflect everyone, but we've tried to, in both the pictures that we show, the conversations that we have, the writers that we hire, and the experiences that we try to really sort of concretize, make sure that we use a criterion to think about who is in the room, who is not in the room, and who needs to be spotlighted. And so you can see by both the breakdown of videos, the culture and ethnicities of the family, and even the dynamics of single families, single parent families, divorced families. Divorce is actually a topic on our page, and queer families across the space. We've been able to integrate that into the wealth of different resources we have. Sometimes it's subversive. We just put gentle pictures in to not make a big deal about it, to make it something that's very easy, very accessible, and is just like every day for all of us. And in some other ways, we've tried to be more pronounced about it. And that's really sort of come at the recommendations of a lot of our advisors to figure out how to make a step that everyone can access no matter where they're getting the information from. Great question. We go back to the slideshow. So in addition to that documentary, we've also been able to include several printables to hammer home the idea that home together with family can be a source of rest, connection, and fun. And the printable joyful moments include small tasks like sharing stories or telling jokes that can remind everyone in families to remember a few of the things that they can do to take care of each other. And finally, articles provide families information and support from subject matter experts on not only remembering the power of their presence, but also the ways that we can respond to children experiencing trauma and racism. So engaging meaningfully with kids about race and racial justice can set the stage for a lifetime of pride, understanding, strength, respect, and confidence. And on this screen, you can see digital games that can be played online across any device. Together with kids, you can use cell phones, tablets, and even computers to explore ways to celebrate our identities on the inside and the out. And Let's Talk About Race, families can explore questions and answers about race and identity in child-friendly, developmentally appropriate ways across 5 different categories. I'm going to show you now just a quick screenshot from it to give you a sense of what that looks like. So I'm going to go onto ssc.org, over to topics, down to racial justice. I'm going to click on, for type, interactives. You'll see the 2 that we were just talking about. One is called Let's Talk About Race, and the second is I Am Me. Let's go first to Let's Talk About Race. It gives you the big idea at the top, a breakdown of the topic that it's in, the age and the length of time it might take to play, as well as some guiding questions from our expert, Dr. Tracy Baxley, to give you a sense of how to engage in the game. Let's see how to play Let's Talk About Race. Options in English and Spanish. These are the 5 different categories that families might be able to choose from. And again, this game was really crafted because of parents saying we want to have these conversations, providers saying we need to have these conversations, but both groups of adults not necessarily knowing the best things to say or the best ways to respond when children have their own open-ended questions. So take a look at important questions. It says, ask children, why do you think someone's skin color is different from yours? Why do you think people's skin comes in different colors? Then, clicking explain, the answer melanin, as you've seen in that first video, is something that we each have inside our bodies that make the outside of our bodies the skin color that it is. It also gives our eye and hair color. And the more melanin you have, the darker your skin will be. So another question, say people have been talking about racism a lot. What do you think that word means? This is a question that an adult may ask a child in your care. After people answer, you might be able to respond with racism is when people are treated unfairly based on how they look. Some people don't like people with darker skin and they aren't nice to them. It's wrong to treat people unfairly because of their skin color. It makes me and many others sad and angry. What do you think? So again, this just gives you some of the different ways that you can use the resources connected to all of these different categories to both ask and answer questions in age-appropriate, developmentally specific ways. In that second resource, I Am Me, kids can have and engage in sort of a community building portrait making on Sesame Street in a fun and animated way. So I'll take a couple minutes to show you how that is. Again, the breakdown specifically for how you might be able to integrate this into your work with some gentle tips and tricks. The big idea at the top that developing a sense of who we are on the inside and outside is part of our identity.
Elmo loves all the things that make his friends unique. Click on a friend to help finish their self-portrait.
Wes.
Wes.
Hi, my name's Wes. I'm 5 years old and love designing buildings. This is me. Help me finish my self-portrait. Looks like I need to finish my skin and my hair. I'm African American. Our skin comes in many shades. Mine is brown. Click to choose a color for my skin.
I want to show you what happens if you choose a color that is not necessarily matched with what
Go ahead. Click to add to my self-portrait. I'm not sure that looks like my skin. My skin is brown. Nice. My hair is black and curly. Click to choose something for my hair. Check out my cool fade. When you're done, press the green check mark. Hey, it's me! I like how the skin is brown and the eyes are brown, just like me.
So we're going to pause there for a second. I think it's important to just name when we deliberately created this resource, it was important for children to not only be able to find words to use and to reflect the prompts that were in the game, but to also to make sure that those words and the description were coming from the characters themselves, right? The idea of racism and this idea of stereotyping and identifying what someone is by sort of telling them what you think was erroneous. And so our advisors told us that it needs to come from children and the identities of people that are describing themselves to help create a community. And so that's what we try to do with the game. So We've been able to take and talk through 2 different ways to use these resources. The first exclusively with children, the second with children in families at homes, and this third and final way, ways that you can use the resources specifically with providers. Racism is obviously everyone's problem and that we need to do our part to stand up against it. But talking about or even thinking about racism can be a daunting task for many parents. Fear of making mistakes or even offending others can hold people back from diving into this important topic. Fortunately, though, there are things that parents can do to move past fear into authentic action. And doing some hard work can really equip parents to lead their families to stand up against racism together. In the workshop on your screen, parents are invited to watch short videos and to consider questions to help them reflect on how they might practice the ideas and strategies in their own lives. Some of these questions might not be easy to answer, and that's okay, right? The hard work is worth it. The videos in this workshop feature Patricia Taylor and Shannon Evans, mothers of young children who are passionate about creating a kinder, safer, more equitable world for future generations. And the work was so good, and we got such a good amount of feedback from it that we actually asked Patricia Taylor to help us write the next piece of professional development, which includes an interactive guide. And as a caring grown-up providing educational groundwork for kids in military families, your commitment to talking about race and diversity is a critical step towards building a more just and equitable world. And we all have similarities and differences that should be honored and celebrated. And so as you take a look at these different lessons that are self-paced and asynchronous, you'll be able to, at your own time and in your own speed, think about 6 weeks worth of resources you can use for every member of your neighborhood, connected to classroom communities, resources for parents, work you can give for children to do at home with families, professional development for your own budding career, and also finally, on day 5 of each of the 6 weeks, some gentle questions and guided reflections that you can use as you think about how to integrate this work into the fold of everyday programming. It includes in it a wealth of different resources. That includes those videos from workshops that we've been able to trim and curate in specific ways, some fun songs and specific ways that both Muppets and people model these different strategies, and also articles that people can provide for families to talk about things like upstandingship and allyship to community building. So I've talked a whole lot, but I want to give you some time to play on the screen together. And so I'm going to ask if you can put up the poll. Connected to our racial justice page, we have 3 different subtopic pages that we've been able to curate a little bit more specific content to. And that includes dealing with racism, talking about race, and racial justice for military families, a unique section of the resource list. Take a moment and use the poll to let us know which subject topic page you'd like to explore together right now for the next few minutes. Great, friends, let's take about 10 more seconds. Think about which one we can dive in together. And again, all of these pages are free. They're always available for you whenever you want to access them by just clicking onto ssic.org and taking a look into the racial justice topic page. But I wanted to take a few minutes today so that we could talk through them together and maybe look through one as a unit. Let's take a look and see which one we'd like to go into. This is a very split decision, y'all. It says, number 1, dealing with racism, and number 2, talking about race. So it's a 51-49 split. We have a little bit of time, so I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. Let's take a couple of minutes in dealing with racism, and then we'll go over to talking about race. You'll see some of the things overlap. So I'm gonna go back to the top. I'm not gonna click into ssic.org because you all are pros now. You know how to get to the page. You've been able to weave over to topics, click into racial justice, and you've gone down to see all of the work we're doing. So I'm going to go back, and before I go into the subtopic page, I'm going to click back into type and click find, which will give you the breakdown of the library of all of these different resources. And so if after the end of today, you might say, Antonio, you're talking too fast, or I don't know which of these specific buckets things are in, don't worry. You can just go to the racial justice topic page and all of the resources are listed below. You can filter at your leisure or just poke around and see what works for you. You also said that you were interested in taking a look at dealing with racism. And these are specifically materials to help children cope with difficult race-related situations and experiences. So these are sort of what we do when we think about things like that racial comeback strategy of breathe, feel, share. and giving children other things to do when being able to not only address, but adjust to a world that is racist as they begin to work with us to co-create a more just one in the future. The subtopic page dealing with racism includes a wealth of videos and 2 other articles that you might use in conversations with children. It includes that first strategy of read, feel, share, as well as Proud of Your Eyes, where Alan and one of our newest young people get to talk a little bit about an incident that occurred connected to her racial identity and cultural response. We have the video with Rosita, Spanish is My Superpower, the song Giant, and then a breakdown of those different video documentaries with families from very cultural, ethnic, and racial backgrounds, talking a little bit about what makes them unique, special, and in a family. The 2 articles below are For White Parents, the 4 S's of anti-racist parenting, and racial trauma and responding to racism, to sort of a little bit more deliberately curate the resources to the members of your community that you're working with to build a more just world. Let's take a look at Proud of Your Eyes together. You'll see the big idea. When something upsetting about race happens, like being teased about one's looks, there are ways that children can help themselves, like singing a comforting, confidence-building song.
Hey, look, Wes. Here is a picture of my dad, Victor.
Oh, well, you look just like him. Yeah. Oh, hey, Annalyn. Are you ready to make a family scrapbook?
Yeah, you are right on time.
Yeah.
Annalyn, is everything all right? What happened? You know, you can always talk to us about how you're feeling.
I was at the park today, and the boy told me I was ugly. He made fun of my eyes. He said they look slanty.
Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That child was wrong to say those things to you. Your eyes are the perfect eyes for you. Yeah. Just like my eyes are the perfect ones for me.
I told him that he was wrong and that he hurt my feelings. My friends stood by me, but is it true? Are my eyes ugly?
No, you have pretty eyes.
Everything about you is beautiful, both inside and out.
Thanks, but I'm still really sad.
Look, I understand how you're feeling because the same thing happened to me, and it's very hurtful.
I'm sorry they were mean to you, Annalyn.
You know, sometimes when I'm sad, I like to sing. It helps me feel better. And I know the perfect song.
I see in your eyes that you feel hurt. Just know that they were wrong. Someone said things that made you sad. You were beautiful all along. Your eyes are wonderful, and the girl here with me, I see is someone wonderful. Yes, the girl here with me is someone wonderful. Your eyes tell the story of your family. They show where you come from and how you came to be. The color, the shape, and the size should always make you proud of your eyes.
Maybe your eyes look different from mine. They're part of who we are. But when we both smile, our eyes both shine as bright as any star. Your eyes are beautiful, and when you look at me, I see someone wonderful. When you look at us, we see someone wonderful. Your eyes tell the story of your family. They show where you came from and how you came to be. The color, the shape,
and the size
should always make you proud of your eyes.
I can always be proud of my eyes. That song reminded me that my eyes look just like my Lola's. She's from the Philippines, and I think she's beautiful.
Oh, your grandmother is beautiful. And look, so My eyes are the same as my dad's.
Oh.
I'm really proud that I look like him because both our eyes make us special and unique.
Oh. My eyes are kind of different from my dad's.
Yeah, but even if your eyes aren't exactly like your parents, they still tell the story of your family.
Oh.
Singing with you helped me feel better.
Oh, singing songs is a great way to help when you have big feelings. And you can do it when you're by yourself.
Or when you're with your friends.
And remember that your friends are always here for you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Wes.
Bring it in.
So glad y'all are enjoying, at least it sounds like with happy tears, some of the different resources connected to that. So we've taken a look at the things with dealing with racism. I'm going to step back out of it and take a look at our second suggested subtopic page talking about race. You can see lots of those same resources that we have been talking about are reflected on this page, some of the different unique videos. The What is Racial Literacy is an article that I think is one of the great sort of things to start with if you're not quite sure in professional settings how to begin this topic with providers as you integrate it into the fold of programming and conversations you're having with families. What is racial literacy really gets to that first concept of being able to define and create a shared language. The way that I've been able to present this in my own groups with stakeholders in my own classrooms, in professional development and learning cohorts is twofold. The first is to just ask it as an open-ended question, to ask people what racial literacy is, and maybe even before that, doing a quick do now or icebreaker by asking people where they got their name. So sometimes coming about the idea of racial literacy from the side and exclusively grounded in an exponential experience, like who I am as a person, will help me connect to the larger concepts of identity that other people are beginning to ascertain as well. So after people start talking about where they got their names from, we can then have people collectively as a group define what racial literacy is. And then you might give them this article to read out loud. Then go back and return to that first definition that you had with the group of how they perceived and defined racial literacy and add to it using these different components of the text. It's both a great check for understanding and ensures that you can all jump again from that same diving board so that people can begin to talk about concepts behind racism and race in very deliberate, strategic ways. Another thing, if you're short on time, is to give this same article, but to actually remove the big idea at the top and to ask people to summarize it in one sentence. That's what I've also found to be a great check for understanding that you can use in both a PowerPoint deck or an in-person workshop, when or if you're able to do those right now. So I'm talking a lot. It's 1:30 here in Brooklyn, where I'm from, and I want to make sure that we keep these conversations going, but we start to round out what sounds and what has been a very good conversation, and hopefully some good exposure for all of you with some of the resources we've been trying to build connected to racial justice and coming together. But we can't close, y'all, without a couple more pieces of trivia. So let's do one more. Y'all know everybody's angriest friend here on Sesame Street, Oscar, but who actually was Oscar the Grouch modeled after? Take a moment and use the chat window to let us know. I'll give you a hint. It is someone in the neighborhood. Think of jobs that people have that everyone in the neighborhood knows about. Margaret, great guess as a trash collector. So great guesses, and it makes sense. However, it's actually something a little bit different. He was actually shaped after a cab driver. Carol Spinney, who passed away in 2019, played the role of both Oscar the Grouch and Big Bird, and said that he based Oscar's voice on a cab driver from the Bronx who brought him to the audition. And he was so memorable that Carol wanted to actually make sure that he was reflected in the show and the fabric of history than everything that came after. So we spent a whole lot of time today talking through a breadth of resources that you can use for everyone in the neighborhood. And as you explore these resources in ways that are most meaningful to you, remember that there is no singular or right way to use them. If you know your stakeholders and what they want or need the most to celebrate, just click into ssic.org to find a resource that matches. Now, at the beginning of our conversation today, I invited you to sort of jot down on a piece of paper the name of a single child or family or staff member you're working with to think a little bit more about which resource might be best for them. And we've taken a look at things that are great for kids, things that are great for caregivers and families, and things that are great for providers. And I've been able to slightly color code them here on this page. You'll see that the color blue reflects where on the screen we've been able to take a look from that whole racial justice topic page, in green for caregivers and families, and in purple for providers. So take a moment and on that piece of paper, go ahead and jot down which of the resources, maybe the type or even the title, might be best for you to introduce to someone after today's conversation. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. All right. And friends, as we start to wind down today's conversation, we're going to do a couple more ways to engage with each other, to think about how these resources landed for you, and also ways that you can contextualize them moving forward in the future. So the first thing I'm going to ask is for Raven to put up a poll connected to that first question. We've talked about the 6 different types of resources and the wealth of different ways you might integrate them into the fold of work and conversations you're already having. But as you think about what you're going to introduce, let us know which resource you would use first: the printables, the articles, videos, storybooks, interactive games, or workshops. Take a quick minute and let us know which answer feels like the best starting point for you. Thanks to Barry and Phil for even naming the specific ones they're going to use. I've found that in the context of being able to present this, when we have real clarity on what we want to use and how we want to use it, it makes the transition after these presentations so much easier. All right, friends, let's take about 10 more seconds, and then we can show the results of the question. All right, let's take a look at the final answer. So it sounds like videos are this group's sweet spot. They're great conversation starters and ways to engage before. And again, just as one quick refresher on how to get into it, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you how to get to the website, right? Click into ssic.org. Once you go there, you'll be able to prompt between caregiver or provider. All the information is the same across both pathways in English and in Spanish. The slight distinction is that within the provider section, you have these additional tabs of partner and professional development. I'll go under topics for racial justice. You'll see that video that kicked off the conversation today, the subtopics below, the wealth and library of resources we have connected to our resources. And then if you're short on time or specifically looking for videos, you go over to time, click in video, and you'll see all of the videos that we addressed today, as well as some additional ones. The second question I'm going to ask you to do is to use the chat window to let us know your response to question number 2. What do you see as the strength of these resources? We've talked a little bit about why we've created them, some of the backstories, some of the ways we've been able to try to diversify and expand the work we're doing, but how do these look in your life, in your day-to-day work with children and families in your care? Throw the question in the chat window. We can take 2 or 3 minutes to do that. And as we do, I'll see if I can invite Allison back to the conversation to help me close out with that third question.
Hi, Antonio, I'm back.
How's it going?
It's great. I've really enjoyed this information. Thank you so much for sharing everything.
Of course, and people are putting in some great answers connected to these things. And while we want to definitely celebrate all of those wins we've had at an early stage of this initiative and some of the ways we've continued to grow, we also want to be really mindful of things that we can do better at or to do differently. And so I wanted to sort of bring you back to the conversation to help us think a little bit more, along with people in the chat window that might want to answer it along with you. But what are some of the ways, after you now see what we've been able to share, that Sesame can refine and better reflect the identities and experiences of Black children and their families? What could we be doing, or maybe have considered in a different way moving forward?
Yeah, this is a really great question. And you've actually done a lot by just asking the question, right? Because you want to listen to those who are at the center of your work. And so I really appreciate the question. I was just recently reading a study that shared that most Black adults say that race is central to their identity and it makes them feel connected to a broader Black community. Research also outlines, as you've shared through your presentation, that Black children and children of color still need to see people that look like them. They still need to see leaders and professionals that look like them. This impacts their development and how they begin to decide who they are and what they appreciate themselves. And like you shared, developing a positive self-identity. I personally think that Sesame Street has done a really great job, both introducing Muppets and ideas that reflect an entire neighborhood, including people that look like me. Sesame was one of the only programs that I could watch when I had little ones and young children. They're a little older now, but I felt it helped educate my babies on early literacy, pre-math, pre-science, but also it reflected ways for us to be good neighbors, be kind friends, and be bold in our skin, and really live free from fear and stress and just have fun. So in thinking about your question though, ways that Sesame can really refine and better reflect the identities and experiences of Black children and families, I think that Sesame should continue on this trajectory, number one, continue listening, continue learning, continue having these brave conversations and encouraging our families. One thing that all of us need to be very aware of and be sure to carry out is to not to be afraid to let children know about Black history and Black struggle and movements like the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Panther Movement, who was really behind No Kid Hungry, just really allowing kids to understand and learn about those things. And then of course, current challenges. So we can integrate more history, I believe, into all of our programming. And not just the Black history staples that we hear next month, right, at Black History Month, but the little known Black heroes like Shirley Chisholm, right, the first Black woman elected to Congress, or even encouraging people, and I've seen Sesame do this, and I love this, to kind of explore their own family history. So another hidden figure is Alice Christopher Ballard. She was one of the first African Americans in the nation to reach a professional staff status with the Girl Scouts of America. In 1958, while Jim Crow laws were fully adopted, she managed to become a director of a children's home, and she received the first Citizens Award, and she was the first African American to do so. And she happens to be my grandmother. And so I think
you gotta lead with that. That's like the
I think there's power in that. I think there's power in those kinds of things. And that's just understanding our rich history, understanding our rich family history, whatever that may be. Your grandparent may not have been a first, but your grandparent may have been the first in your family to do something or accomplish something. And that's a beautiful thing to celebrate. Martin Luther King said that we are not makers of history, we are made by history. And so it's part of who we are. And then I guess lastly, as I think about it more, I think our organizations, and I'm saying that plural because I think all of us need to really remember to keep our ears to the street, listening to the changes in the climate across the Black community, socioeconomic status changes, being differently abled, having what may be considered a non-traditional family dynamic. 2 moms, 2 dads, it may be considered, depending on who you are, it may be considered non-traditional. Even representing subracial groups like Afro-Latin or Afro-Asian, thinking about all of these things and making sure that we have resources that speak to these unique life circumstances. though we saw poverty rates decline in the last couple years for Black citizens, in various cities, the percentages are extremely high still. And so, like, for instance, at NBCDI, we were able to learn a lot of this through our State of the Black Child report cards that can be found on our websites. And we did these report cards in states across the US. The distribution rate of poverty is still very uneven due to a lot of systemic issues that we won't talk about right now, but we have to put a dent in what we can put a dent in. And I believe doing that is educating people. That is one of the most powerful things we can do. And then amplifying the beauty of our communities. So many subcultures, the foods, the entrepreneurial spirit, historically Black colleges and universities. I mean, just celebrating Black success in general. I think keeping all of these kinds of things in mind can help shape and reshape the resources and the content that we promote. I want to be sure to promote the resources that, NBCDI also has, especially our written material that can be found on our website in the policy section under publications. And that's where you can find those report cards, as I mentioned, and some of the research that is so amazing, but is directly connected to some of the great information that we learned today with this presentation. And so, I think that's a very long answer.
I was jotting down questions quickly, so thank you so much. That was comprehensive. You should have been running this show. It was amazing. I feel like I want to make sure that I'm hearing what you're saying, right? Part of the notes that I took was this idea of the importance of not only representation, but reflection, right? How do we isolate and celebrate and spotlight pioneers that have been able to create both within and beyond the Black, African, and Brown community, like what it means to be both a leader and part of something larger than oneself.
Right.
Also this idea of global concepts of community. How do we recognize the power and the challenge and predicaments that come within American history of race and connectivity, but also how do we see, I think this was reflected in the chat window, the sort of broader spectrum across all of the world of what it means to be part of a global community and the connectedness to race, ethnicity, and culture in those things. And then finally, this idea of recognizing that identity and specifically identities within communities are not static, right? That what makes a community way back when might have some very real components that have lived and maintained, but that have also evolved, changed, and been able to add or sort of modify, right? So being able to really sort of do a dance of celebrating what has become before and being able to sort of create and innovate with the strengths of those spaces.
What a great summary.
We can take our show on the road, Allison. This is awesome. Well, thank y'all for both making time, for putting great information and questions into the chat window. I just have one more sort of comment to share, and then I will pass my slides off and be out of your space and off of your screens for the day. But I want to just make sure that everybody knows a couple different gentle reminders that we like to put at the end of all of our presentations. The first is to just really explore the site. Together, you and I have spent the last hour and 46 minutes really playing in the sandbox. You've heard the backstories because I think it's really important to know why we build the resources we do and how we build them, but also giving you the chance to just look at ssic.org lets you explore not only things connected to what we talked about today in racial justice, but also take a look at some of our other initiatives like See Amazing with Autism and a wealth of other things that people have been able to flag in the chat window. Additionally, if you have time or interest, make a profile. You all are way too busy to be going to this page every single day and exploring all of the different moving pieces that continue to grow. So when you make a profile, you create your own virtual locker that you can use to drop in any type of resource that you think might be helpful in your work and conversations with members of your neighborhood and community. And finally, find just one resource that fits. You know there is no single right way to present these things. You know the people that you're working with, you know the resources that they consume, and you know how those two things can work together. So don't feel like you have to take on the world. Just find one resource to introduce to someone in your circle of care in the next week and go from there. Finally, we've talked a lot about this idea of being giants on the inside and celebrating that on the outside to build community, but it wouldn't be Sesame without a song that shares that. So I'm going to share with you our song, I Am Somebody, which we've called the Giant Song. And I put it at the end because it's super uplifting, but it's also an earworm. So I guarantee this will stick with you for the rest of the day, but in a good way. Let's take a look and listen to it one more time together.
My eyes are brown and your eyes are blue.
But there is no difference. I'm still the same as you. I am proud, and you should be too. There is no difference. Elmo has feelings like you. I am, you are, we are somebody. I am, you are, we are somebody. Like a giant, I'm tall, getting taller. I'm strong, I'm stronger. I'm beautiful, you know. I am somebody. And I will stand up. Elmo will speak up.
I'm beautiful, you know.
Elmo's beautiful, you know. I can be anything, yeah. I can do anything, yeah. I am strong in my skin, yeah. And together we will always win, yeah.
If something's wrong, I will stand up.
If something's unfair, Elmo will speak up. In this great big world, it's not okay to feel hurt. We're one big family, so let's care for each other. Oh, I am, you are, we are somebody. I am, you are, we are somebody. Like a giant, I'm tall, getting taller. I'm strong, I'm stronger. I'm beautiful, you know. I'm beautiful, you know. I can be anything, yeah. I can do anything, yeah. I am strong in my skin, yeah. And together we will always win, yeah. I should be defended, and respected. I should be accepted. I'm beautiful, you know. Like a giant, I'm tall, getting taller. I'm strong, I'm stronger. I'm beautiful, you know. I am somebody, and I will stand up. I will speak up. I'm beautiful, you know. I'm beautiful, you know.
And as Anna mentioned in the chat, one of those different ways that you can stay connected to your Sesame Street family on social media by following us at Sesame Community on Twitter and at Sesame Street and Communities on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. You can also text Sesame at 833-541-0461 to hear some of our newest updates and get connected to our newsletter and some of the resources there. Thanks everyone for putting up some of the different resources connected to the post-survey information. On behalf of Sesame Street and the work connected to NBCDI and all of you, thank you for the powerful role you play with children and families across neighborhoods. And we look forward to learning more from and with you in the future. Take care.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please take the post survey. As many of you as we can, we'd love for you to take it. Thank you to our friends at Sesame. Thank you to Raven Moore, who was on the team at NBCDI and produced this event. And if you all could please, again, take the post survey and follow us on social media at NBCDI. Have a wonderful afternoon.